Hello, BookTube. I'm low on battery and I'm low on phone storage, so we'll see how this goes. I've had an absolutely horrendous time trying to get a video done this week, but been extremely busy with work and a few other things. So I'm just going to dive straight in. I've been tagged in the Beyond Bookshelf tag by Mike at Bibliophile Reads, another fantastic kind of get to know you tag from him. And there's 8 questions in it, and while they're kind of, the idea is that they go beyond the bookshelf, I suppose, because I'm still quite new to booktubing. I thought I'd actually stick, well, a bit closer to the book theme. So for each answer I have, I'm going to kind of link in a book I've read on it, or a book that I think is relevant to it. So hopefully you enjoy it. I've managed to record almost one full version of this, but that was a day or two ago, and it just kept crashing and losing pieces in the middle. It was horrendous. But fingers crossed. So we're against the clock and we're against the storage on this one. So let's see how we get on. So the first question: what is something you enjoy outside of books that people might not know about? Well, one thing I really enjoy doing is working with my hands, particularly in the garden. I love yard work, weeding, planting plants, particularly vegetables and things you can eat, and it's kind of useful pieces of agriculture. Something I really enjoy, and a book that's actually been kind of influential on me, how I approach cultivating the little bit of land that I have, is Wilding: The Return of Nature to a British Farm. So this is part of the KNIP, or the NEP Wildlife Project in Sussex in England. So it's essentially the story of these farmers, this farm, who farmed the farm, and they had a modern industrial farm, and they found that they were just pouring money into it and getting nothing in return. Pumping spending money to buy fertilizer, spending money to buy the correct seeds, spending money on managing the soil, tilling. That it was all a massive expense and seemed to be fighting against the land. But also that they found that what they were getting out was just reducing. So that would cause them to pump in more fertilizer, more water control measures, more interference in the land, until finally they got to a point where they were about to go bankrupt. So they could either just call it quits or try something radical. And thankfully, they did something really radical, which was wilding. So wilding is got a popular concept now, and hopefully becomes more and more popular. So essentially, they tried to let the land go wild again. So rather than fight against nature, work with nature. And but it isn't actually as simple as stop interfering and let it go on. Over the decades of industrial farming, the quality of the soil, the microbiome, all the layers of nutrients had been absolutely destroyed, and it took quite a lot of actual careful management and science to get it up to a level where plants and natural flora and fauna could thrive, and thrive they did. I could I know there's a question later on, is there something you could talk about for hours? Probably this. It's been very influential on how I view land management, and it reads extremely well. Anyway, to cut a long story short, they essentially try and recreate a post-Ice Age European savanna, where the weeds aren't weeds, they're plants that want to grow there, but they're managed by the insects, which are managed by the birds, which are help the scrubland grow. The scrubland, the shrubs and the brambles and all these things, they protect the seedlings for the larger trees, large fauna, such as kind of Tamworth pig. They went for kind of heritage breeds of animals. They kind of root up the brambles and the scrubs once the trees are big enough. It all kind of interlinks and interplays with each other. Not that there's a balance in nature at all, but that there are always kind of competing forces in it. So it's been massively influential on my thinking in that area. The second question: what is one small thing that brings you happiness in everyday life? Well, one small thing is seeing the sea. I'm very fortunate to live near the sea here in Ireland, and I get to see it almost every day, and it always gives me great pleasure, whether the weather's good or whether it's sunny or stormy or raining or foggy. There's always a great lift I get from being near the water, from seeing the water, and ideally being on the water or even in the water swimming and all that. It's just absolutely terrific to be around, and it's been quite handy in this very hot summer we're having, because every so often you get a nice cool sea breeze, or the water would carry up from the water and kind of come down, which gave a nice kind of gentle spray, which was much appreciated. The book related to the sea has probably will have the opposite impact on you. You may never want to go near a boat ever again. It's The Wager, A Tale of Shipwreck, Mutiny and Murder by David Gran. So essentially it's the story of a really barely seaworthy vessel in the age of sail that's sent out to kind of find it was part of a mission in one of those wars between Britain and a continental power, in this case Spain, to capture one of their treasure galleons in the Pacific. And it is an absolute action-packed, complex adventure, and at every point you think this cannot get more extreme, cannot get more bizarre. There cannot be more of it. You're reading about absolutely shocking things and realizing, well, I'm only maybe a quarter of the way through the book. What else is there to come? And boy, is there a lot more to come. I think we can be all quite thankful we don't have to go around in sailing boats again. That day may yet come back. So that's a book I highly recommend, and I've seen loads of people read it. I remember having a great chat to a security guard at work who was reading that book. It's a really, really terrific book, and I think it was a bestseller as well, and deservedly so. Just really, really fantastic non-fiction book. I've read a few other of David Grant's books, and the guy can write. Question 3: what is something you could talk about for hours beside books? So I think rewilding is one thing I can talk about for hours, but another thing would be Irish history. It's very easy to talk at length and depth about Irish history in Ireland to Irish people and to non-Irish people and outside of Ireland. And anyway, you can. There's a huge amount of history here, and you're taught it at a very young age, and it's kind of interwoven into your life. You can pretty much talk to anyone about the history of the country or the local area. And I think as you start to mature in life, you realize actually the local history is often much, much more fascinating than big global histories. There's a famous poet in Ireland called Patrick Kavanagh, who you study at school, and he's a line about the poem about a local dispute, and it ends with and Homer's ghost came softly to my mind. I met the Iliad from such a local row. Gods make their own importance. And gods make their own, there's books there in the background about Hitler and World War II and all that good stuff. Or bad stuff, sorry. Finding out about the local area is endlessly fascinating, and just throws up stories from all around the world. Even when you just look at one local place, everything is so connected together. That's something I'd talk about for a long, long time. And Irish history can be quite grim with all the failed rebellions and famines and massacres, and yeah, loss of language and destruction, and yeah, there's a reason why it's as treeless as Portugal. Um, but one book that takes a kind of a different view, a much more light-hearted, not light-hearted and light-hearted subject, but a much more affable kind of look through Irish history is um, Ireland's Forgotten Past by the improbably named Turtle Bunbury. It's a nice slim volume. I don't have one here, but got it from the library. So he looks at kind of the lesser talked about events in Irish history, and yeah, the one, you know, it goes back to, you know, what's the the where bears were living in Ireland at the end of the last ice age. Um, it goes into a little bit about Mrs. Leeson. I'll let you find out a bit more about her yourself. That isn't always it's not as nice a story as it's maybe portrayed there. I've met. She was a madam in George in Dublin, and yeah, her memoirs were a bestseller at the time, and that's a real page turner of a book. I can tell you. And there's also looks at things like the impact of the Crimean War in Ireland, or veterans associations, and yeah, it's a very different. Yeah, very the things he picks on are very different than what would normally be looked at in Irish history. When you read the book, and if you have a sense of Irish history, you can kind of see what strands he's picking on, or where his sympathies might lie. But yeah, a book that you can kind of pick apart is much better than a book that you can't. But yeah, so question 4: what is a skill or hobby you would love to learn someday? And yeah, a million things I'd love to learn how to do and try my hand at, and you know, I've made a good attempt at a few of them. One that I've tried again and again and has just eluded me is learning languages. I'm not particularly gifted in that area, even though I've worked pretty hard at them. But one I've always really wanted to learn is German. I have a lot of German friends. I've spent a bit of time in Germany. It's a country I'm really interested in. I really like. The art of Germany is really terrific. And yeah, the Northern Renaissance has a lot to say for it. Even contemporary German art, you know, it has a kind of, I mean, not contemporary art, but you know, stuff that's happened more recently is also yeah, has its own kind of austere beauty to it. So kind of the book to represent that is Franz Kafka's Die Verwandlung, which us English speakers would know as the Metamorphosis. So that is the story of Grigor Samsa, who wakes up one day in his bed as a cockroach. Except that's not what's in this book. The word used in German, and I've had many German friends try to explain this to me, is, you can see it here, the word is Ungeziefer, which they will swear up and down does not mean cockroach. I've never met a German speaker that would say that word is cockroach, and yet it is always translated, well, as far as I know, into English as cockroach. I've set myself a challenge to not read the Metamorphosis until I can read it in German. So that I haven't made much progress in that, other than that one word. But yeah, that's a skill I'd absolutely love to have. And I've made some decent attempts at it, but just not quite cracked it. Question 5: what is one thing you think everyone should experience at least once? I've been very, very fortunate pretty much everywhere I've lived. There's been a large songbird population, and there's nothing like being woken by the dawn chorus. So for those of you who don't know, or who don't live in a place with a lot of songbirds, dawn chorus is kind of the bird song that explodes at the crack of dawn as the sun rises, generally in the spring and the summer. Birds sing for all kinds of reasons, and I suspect also because they enjoy it. Though for the dawn chorus, from what I understand, it's primarily the male birds singing, and they're singing two things. One is, I'm here, all you other male birds, stay away, or I'll get you. Or the same bird is singing, hey, female birds, I'm here, come and see how great I am. I suppose, but that's the essence of both songs when you kind of go down to it. Look how great, hear how great I am, and boy, can you hear how great they are. So, yeah, currently I live in a place with a huge bird, well, quite a large bird population, and yeah, you can really hear it in the morning. There's Captain Cook's account of being awoken by thunderous bird song in the morning off the coast of New Zealand is something to definitely seek out. Even though his ship was moored quite away from shore, the sheer sound of the huge number of birds, and of course New Zealand has only one native mammal, which is a cat, or is a bat. That means that essentially it was islands of birds and birds and birds. But the book I have to kind of show that is Hiroshige, Birds and Flowers. So this is a book I found in a Dublin second-hand bookshop years ago, and what it is I think it must have come from, it accompanied an exhibition somewhere. That's what I suspect. But what it is 91 beautiful plates of birds. I think you can just about make it out there, accompanied by a haiku. Now, unfortunately, there isn't a haiku for each one, and unfortunately, the haikus are in Chinese. You'd call it pinyin. I don't know what you'd call it in Romanji. I think they call it in Japanese. But it's the translation and the haiku. A haiku is a type of short Japanese poem. It has the short poem in kind of transliterated into Englishy sounds, and the English translation, and a piece about the plate. But the real star of the show is the actual artwork themselves. So that one is called Crane and Rising Sun, very on point. This is the unimaginatively named bird in a tree. I think they could have gone into a bit more detail there. And 3 wild geese flying downwards across the moon. That's wonderful. Oh, it's kind of adorable. Sparrow and bamboo. I'm always at a loss of kind of what to do with these Japanese white-eye on a branch of maple. There we go. Is it a kind of a shame that they're all kind of locked inside this book? Would I be better off going at it with some kind of knife, cut them out and frame them around the house? But whether that would count as an act of vandalism or not, I don't know. But it's something I'm always tempted to do with this book. So question 6, what is a movie or show you can rewatch anytime? Well, I'm quite busy with work, and I have a young family, and a lot of work around the house to do as well. So I don't have much time for TV and movies. I do have an inordinate amount of time or an unbalanced amount of time for YouTube, I think, but you can kind of have that on playing in the background, essentially like a radio, I think. But there was one show I was watching with my wife earlier in the year when when it was still dark, and that is a show called Resident Alien, and yeah, really cool little show. The premise is an alien has landed on Earth and taken over the identity of a doctor that's living in a remote town in the Rockies in the USA. He kind of becomes involved through because the town doctor dies or is murdered, it turns out. He comes into town and he's asked to be a doctor, even though he doesn't know much about human physiology, but he quickly comes to like or be fascinated by the people he's interacting with, and kind of forms a relationship with Asha, a close friendship, and they solve. Well, there's turns out there's in all these things, in all these small sleepy towns, there's more than meets the eye, and it turns into quite an interesting kind of crime mystery series. But it is based on this graphic novel or comic book. You know, you choose your term of art there. But it's a pretty neat little thing. There you go. That's what the drawings look like. Of course, there is one little boy who can see through the alien's disguise. Obviously, if he was going around with that big purple head, you'd say, well, everyone knew he was an alien. But anyway, yeah, it's extremely well done. However, what's fascinating to me is first I watched the show, and then my wife got me the graphic novel. I think there's a few other volumes as well. They're really, really nice. The premise is the same, but it's handled very differently. So in the TV show, the alien is so alien from humanity, everything is strange, and he's always creating faux pas or misinterpreting things or being too literal or abrupt. Whereas in the comic, it's the opposite. He's so sophisticated and advanced, he finds humans extremely easy to read and understand, and kind of solves the crimes and the mysteries that way. I think in the comic book it's more episodic. In the TV show, it's kind of part of a longer, slightly more convoluted story. But yeah, it's extremely well acted, and there's a lot of great heart and soul in it. So I'd if you fancy, that sounds like your kind of thing. I actually, if it doesn't sound like your kind of thing, I'd say give it a go. I was very skeptical for the first episode, and then watched another one, and yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Question 7, and again I'm conscious that I'm getting warnings that the battery is running out, and I'm getting warnings that the storage is running out, so we'll see how this goes. Question 7, what is a non-alcoholic drink that you would suggest everyone try? Far be it from me to tell you what to do, but over the last couple of days I've been trying out this drink called an Arnold Palmer, which is iced tea with lemonade, not fizzy lemonade, but of the drink lemonade, and it's delicious and refreshing, and we're having great fun in this house just working out what the right ratios are and trying to make our own iced tea. Iced tea isn't a thing that's normally drunk in Ireland. It tends to be tea with milk, black tea with milk, so it's been fun kind of playing around with that. The book that kind of reminds me of is The Bogeyman, A Month on the PGA Tour by George Plimpton. So George Plimpton was one of the last of the Wasps, those kind of that white Anglo-Saxon Protestant echelon of American society that's kind of disappeared, and possibly missed. I don't know. But he was the great amateur. He tried. And there's another book of his I read where he tried boxing. Oh, so yeah. So basically, what he did was he took part in this massive the pro-am, so the professional amateur golf tournament in America in the '60s. So think of, this is the era of Plastic Fantastic and kind of Mad Men, if you can imagine all that together, and then this big lanky George Plimpton is there in the middle of it. I think Arnold Palmer kind of features. I think it may even be an up and coming person. That's how old the book is. I can't quite remember, but yeah, I'm not particularly into golf, but this book was really, really, really good. George Plimpton has his literary credentials. He founded the Paris Review, and more importantly, he knows how to write. He knows how to tell a good story, find an interesting story, and tell it well. And one thing that I've always remembered from it is that golf is a very interesting sport, and that you don't interact with your opponent. The only person you are fighting against or with is yourself. Even the way scores are handicapped, and you it's not like basketball or football where you can take the ball off the other person, or snooker or pool where you can a good pool player is able to knows where the white ball is going to end up, and can kind of make his opponents go much more tricky as a result. Golf is none of this. It is just you and your thoughts, which means that golfers tend to go absolutely insane. So I think is what comes out of that there. And yeah, and the Arnold Palmer drink is quite refreshing. So yep, iced tea and lemonade, and yeah, there you go. There's the recipe. Enjoy. Question 8 is, what is your perfect lazy day? I found this one hard to answer. I really, really dislike being. I really dislike lazy days. This kind of duvet days, the do nothing days. They really rub me the wrong way. I feel there's something kind of wrong about them. But that's me. Obviously, if you enjoy that, you're welcome to it. I hope you have more. Yeah, I like being active. I like being busy. I like doing things. I like engaging with what's going on around me. So kind of a lazy day isn't as restful for me as I would like. Though I've been told many times I need to do it a bit more. But no, thank you. No, give me a day full of activity and interacting with people and getting out and about and accomplishing something I want to do, which is mostly I love the work that I do, and which makes kind of every day seem like a bit of a treat. I'm very, very fortunate, very, very fortunate in that. So I thought it was hard to kind of pick a book to well, actually there was one book I was going to pick, and then another one has come to mind, which is Oblomov. It's a Russian book. I can't remember, it's literally just come to my head. It is a long book about, they say it's a book about nothing. It's a guy on his bed, and I think the first half of the book is him just getting up out of bed, if I remember correctly, and maybe looking out the window. It sounds awful, but it's really good. And I remember I was reading it with a book group a while ago, or a couple of years ago, and I seem to have found an absolutely terrible copy, where everyone else was talking about this big, long Russian book, the masterpiece. They all loved it. I also enjoyed it, but the copy I had was maybe a third the size of everyone else's. And it went along as a breakneck pace. He was zipping through the room. It was, his flights of fancy were coming, quick and fast. And any kind of epiphany he had during it was really got highlighted. This was a translation where I think they've essentially created a completely different book, but one that is a bit closer to what I would like to do on a lazy day, which would be just not have a lazy day. The original book I was thinking of, that's not going to be better than that one, I don't think. So it looks like we've just met it. I'll figure out someone to tag, but yeah, hope you've enjoyed it, and hopefully this video goes up without a hitch. The other ones I tried to put up, nothing worked. It all went absolutely pear-shaped. But here we go. Hope you have a good time. Bye.